Hi, everyone. This is Catherine Adams.
And Elizabeth Wallace, and you're listening to Binary System Podcast number 95. And tonight we're recapping Welcome to Night Vale number 113, Niecelet. We have listened to the episode, and we're going to spoil the hell out of it, so you probably should listen to it first as well. But this is another, very good self-contained little episode. You don't really have to know a heck of a lot about what's going on in Night Vale to think this was a fun one.
Yeah, but at the same time, it has a lot of callbacks to various fun things that longtime viewers of Night Vale will recognize.
Exactly. Now, the premise of this is Cecil is doing the night shift at the radio station. His cousin is in town, and his cousin, Sabina, is 7 months pregnant, and so he's looking forward to having another niece, except he says it's, niece once removed since this is his cousin, but he'll call her a Niecelet. And what was it that you told me?
I had to actually sit down and figure the relationship. So Cecil and Sabina are cousins, which means that it's, definitely cousin once removed. And I'm just sitting there thinking that in no way makes him an uncle. I'm sorry.
No.
But that is definitely what he is running with. It's that he's an expectant uncle. I'm like,
yes.
Well, I admire your enthusiasm, Cecil, but I think you've got that a little wrong.
And I'm not going to tell him that he's wrong because he's so happy.
He really is.
Yeah, his cousin has been playing the radio station nonstop so that the baby can hear Cecil's voice. So that, of course, is important later on.
Very adorable.
Yes.
But he's having to adjust to some new ways that they do things during the night shift. I think somebody at one point told him he needed to hurry up to get to the sponsor or something like that. And he was telling him, now settle down. These sort of things take time. And then he said, like my optometrist said, measure twice, cut once, then do the other eye. I'm like,
Oh, God. Hey, we got a community calendar again this week, which is always fun. I like the community calendar. And one thing he said was there's a band that's going to be playing called Ouroboros, and they are known for doing covers of only their own songs, which I'm like, that's actually pretty clever right there, that you would have a name like Ouroboros and you're doing covers of your own songs. I'm like,
yeah, that's very cool. In fact, I would like somebody to do that on a performance at some point, to say, we're going to do a cover of our own song.
And in case you don't get the reference, an Ouroboros, that's the snake that's in a full circle that's eating itself, I guess.
Eating its tail, yeah.
Which I'm telling you, that should be pronounced Ouroboros. I don't know why. It
really should, because I had to sit there for a second and think what the hell they were talking about with Ouroboros.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's just pronounced wrong.
I don't think even Mom can laugh at us for getting that particular one pronounced, because how many people actually say Ouroboros on a daily basis? Come on.
No, it's true. Do you know what I thought of when I thought of Ouroboros and I imagined a picture of a snake and then I imagined a poem? What do you suppose I thought of?
Emphysema?
That's exactly it. I knew you would get it. And I had to look it up. So
I love this poem. This was in that old cricket magazine, one of the old cricket magazines Mom found for us in storage.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And it's by an author named Myra Cone Livingston, and she is not around anymore. But I am going to do the first of what I hope is going to be a continuing segment on the Binary System podcast where we're going to have a little live reading, and trust me, it'll take a second, but I just love this poem. So it's called The Amphysema. Amphysema, amphysema, such a sight I've never seen. A head to sleep, a head to wake. Amphysema, goodness sake, how amazing, how confusing, not to know which head you're using. Amphysema, amphysema, such a sight I've never seen. A head to play, a head to rest, a head for looking east and west. How peculiar, never knowing what direction you are going. Amphysema, amphysema, such a sight I've never seen. A head to eat, a head to drink, a head to talk, a head to think. Amphysema, what a trouble when you have to do things double.
I love that little poem. It is so freaking
cute.
Clever.
It really is. And the fact that somebody could actually make a rhyme based on a name like Amphysema. I'm sure somebody was like, I bet you can't rhyme this. She's like, oh, I bet I can.
So cute. So yeah, we did have a little bit, what were some of the other things on the, one of the things they mentioned on the community calendar that I thought was so amazing. There was going to be a total eclipse of the sun. The Earth will entirely obscure the sun, and all you will be able to see is the blue corona around the sun. Now, this won't be visible from Earth, obviously, and there aren't any planets in the pathway in order to see something like that. But Cecil still got just damn poetic about what it means to have all of the Earth reduced to that one little blue glow around it. Okay, that's just interesting. That's Night Vale right there.
It's really, really is. And the fact, I mean, obviously that was based on the eclipse that we just had, but I'm like, it's true. If you're at the exact right spot, there will be a time when the Earth eclipses the sun, but there just isn't anybody out there to see it, but it still happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, I can't remember if we mentioned this when we were talking about the eclipse, I think on our last podcast, but there is a theory that if alien life is able to travel to Earth, one of the times they will travel here will be during an eclipse, a total eclipse, as tourists, because the number of places where you could have a sun, a moon, and a planet set up in such a way that you can get a total eclipse is comparatively rare. So you would actually have eclipse tourists from other planets. But I didn't spot any of them, but they may not have actually come to Clayton because we weren't in the path of totality.
Yeah, I think if you're going to travel all the way across the universe to see an eclipse, you're going to be in one of the spots where it's a total eclipse. You wouldn't go half measures.
No, not really.
That, of course, reminds me of that one story about other tourists who visit the planet. What was the name of that story? It's in our short story collection that we always read.
Vintage Season. And
That's the one!
I cannot remember the name of the author. Should I go get the book? I've got the book.
Yeah, either that or I can do a quick Google.
Okay, do a quick Google, because that's one of the ones, I still reread that one. And one of my favorite, the whole idea of, and it's not, God, I don't even, you guys need to find a copy of this story once Elizabeth finds the author and read it, because it's tourism, but not the kind that you would actually imagine.
Oh, interesting. I never knew this. It's called, and this is Wikipedia, so, it's 100% right 80% of the time. Vintage Season is a science fiction novella by American authors Catherine L. Moore and Henry Kuttner, published under the joint pseudonym Lawrence O'Donnell.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. I wonder if that's how it's written down in our book. Surely they credited both authors in our book.
Do you want to go look?
Yeah, let me find it. And I'm back. And yes, the World Treasury of Science Fiction book that we have, which has some of the first places I've ever read an awful lot of my favorite authors, but it does reference Henry Kuttner and C.L. Moore as the authors.
Once again, because, wow. Oh my God, it was published in 1946? Wow.
No
it's just
kidding.
I assumed it was much more recent than that. Holy cow. Oh, siren.
Drink.
Everybody drink.
What's everyone drinking today?
I am a second. I left my glass in the kitchen. Hang on one second.
Well, that won't do.
When I actually have the glass in reach, I am drinking it's supposed to be a vodka cranberry juice, but they didn't have any cranberry juice, so it's a vodka cranberry pomegranate. It's not as good.
That's a shame. I'm having an Imperial Cherry, and I don't know how this is pronounced. Goose, G-O-S-E. So it's very sour.
Okay, good. I like things with a little bit of tanginess from time to time.
This has a lot of it. Oh, yeah.
Nice. But yeah, 1946, so that was when women had a tough time getting published in science fiction, so they generally spelled out their names in a way you didn't know their gender, which is why C.J. Chera is C.J. Chera, because, what is it, Cynthia Jean? Claudia Jean? I don't know. I could look it up, but I ain't gonna. Anyway, so that's what it reminded me of when you were talking about, tourists coming into the planet, because Vintage Season is all about tourists coming to our planet to experience several different things going on the planet, but we're not going to tell you what those are, because you should really go read the story, and we don't want to spoil it.
I think the only other thing I remembered from after going all poetic about the total eclipse of the sun that won't be visible on Earth, he said it was good, and then it's going to be tacos and gun safety with Three-Eyed Bill at the First Methodist.
It's just all this very highfalutin, very cerebral stuff going on. He's like, then tacos and gun safety. You're like, well, that was just sort of changed gears very quickly. He did mention that today's sponsor is Equinox Gym, and they were talking about all their different plans. Like, they have a shaming spa, and I'm like, I'm sure that's actually a thing, but like that one diet plan that they listed at one point.
The Zima cleanse.
Ew. It's gross. Then he also mentioned he was talking about business news, about how futures are down, but there's still a brisk trading in the past. But he also talked about it's going to be featuring xenophobia branded as nationalism, branded as pride. And I'm like, that got too real world there for a minute for me.
Oh,
Boy.
yeah. Yeah. But he started getting a little bit teary-eyed about, waiting for his niecelet to be born and being able to guide her through all sorts of wonderful things that'll happen in her life, like her getting her first license and then her crossbow. Like, wait a minute. I mean, the way he said that was like those two things came together.
Maybe they ought to be. But he also mentioned about, then she'll be the first time she's voting and the first time she buys a lottery ticket, which really is the same thing. I'm like, another real world example.
Stop being so on the nose, Cecil.
So he gets a little misty-eyed about all of it, and he goes to, run out to grab a tissue from the bathroom, and the door handle comes off in his hand.
And the place where the door handle was supposed to go is packed with hot tar or just dense tar. And which he's sure doesn't bring it up to code, but he's suddenly locked in a windowless room with no way out, and he's not sure there's any air coming in.
Right. So before he starts to panic, he sends us off to the weather, which there was a reason why the weather sounded very familiar today.
Yep. It was dispersion. I was thinking when it first started, it was like, well, the episode was co-written by Deza, so I thought maybe it was going to be one of her songs, but then that started playing. I'm like, oh my God, that's definitely dispersion right there.
Have we ever heard a dispersion song that had words to it, though?
I don't know. I don't think so, but it's certainly in the realm of possibility. So what was the title for this one?
It was If We Live, and it was definitely very dark in tone, but it sounded like a dispersion song, and if you've heard one of them, you've kind of got an idea of what to expect from that.
Yep. So we come back from the weather, and Cecil's in full-on panic.
Oh, yeah, he's trying to calm himself down, and at one point he's just like, be like the praying mantis whose head is like a guitar pick. I'm like, wait, what?
Cecil, how is that helpful?
For him, I guess it was, because then he started saying, you've got to think like an uncle. So that he sort of went into some kind of meditative noises at one point, and then did figure out something that he could do. He could call for help for the people listening on the radio.
So he starts calling out to everybody to please just come and let him out. But he doesn't want everybody in the entire town flooding over there because it'll just jam-pack all the roads. So just like, if you're coming, just fire a flare into the air and, so everyone will know that you're the person who's coming, and then just come let me out at any moment now. Is anyone listening? He actually starts worrying that it might not be anybody listening because they mentioned at the last station meeting that the night show has really low ratings, but he says, this is beyond low ratings. This is talking to a tin can tied to a string, and the other end is tied to a fire hydrant at the bottom of the sea.
Ugh, siren, drink again.
Oh, for goodness sake, it's all going on in San Diego.
It's Labor Day as the time of this recording. Are we having a lot of barbecue problems? I don't know. Thanks, dude. Appreciate that. Anyway. But then he realizes he knows that there is definitely one person listening. As we said at the beginning of this podcast, Sabina has had the radio on 24/7, so the baby in utero can hear Cecil's voice. So he starts talking to the baby.
And telling the baby, all right, you need to brace yourself and kick right for the rib cage over you, and just kick and kick, and then the phone starts ringing. He's like, oh, I forgot this was in here. I'm like, Cecil
could have called somebody. But it's Sabina, who was voiced by Dessa, which is very cool. And she was like, the baby started kicking, and then I heard the radio, is everything? So
he's able to tell her to go ahead and drive over and pick him up. And yes, he'll have snacks for her, because of course she's thinking about she needs to get food. But she said, by the way, did you know there's a faceless old woman living in your home? She keeps trying to put lotion on my stomach while I'm asleep. And Cecil's like, oh yeah, she does that.
So she's on the way. He's hoping that he can get her to come quickly, because when she said she was going to stop and get food, she was actually going to stop at Subway to get a mashed potato and Nutella sandwich. I'm like, that's either another example of weird Night Vale food, or that's just pregnant people food. That's a thing they would do. Yeah.
Before she signs off, she shouts, enough with the lotion. So I can't remember when the last time was that we encountered the faceless old woman.
I think it was before the trial, wasn't it? Before the trial of Hiram McDaniels?
I mean, obviously they couldn't managed to make her stand trial because they tried arresting her at one point, and then it turned out they were accidentally arresting a whole bunch of other faceless old women who legally live in their own homes. So
right. It's terribly discriminatory of them, just sort of judging people by their lack of faces. Ugh.
But I have to wonder
weird.
if this is actually going to herald the return of the faceless old woman, getting a shout out to her in this episode.
Yeah, the fact that Cecil didn't seem to be bothered by it was kind of weird. He was just like, oh yeah, that's a thing she does. You know, you would think that with everything that happened, he would be a little bit more horrified that she had come back. I don't know.
But anyway, that was so he signed off by saying, oh, now you're just going to wait for the sound of a door opening and oxygen flooding the room and the wheezing of a pair of overworked lungs. Any second now. Any second now. And then we kind of trailed off.
Yep. So we're assuming he's not still locked in there, but we don't know for sure. But if you're wondering when you go to YouTube for Welcome to Night Vale and see that the episode is 33 minutes long, it's actually 25 minutes long because at the end of it, they have a preview for the newest season of Within the Wires, which we did not listen to.
Which we have not been listening to since, I think, the 5th episode of the first season. I'm sorry, you guys. I know it's good. It's just not really, calling me.
No, I mean, it's not like Orbiting Human Circus of the Air or anything, but I just...
It's not irritating.
No, if I'm going to catch up on podcasts, I started listening to the one that Hannah's been recommending so strongly. I'm about in the 4th episode of My Dad Wrote a Porno, which is awfully fun.
Just so hilarious. I mean, Okay, the premise of this is that the dad of one of the podcasters actually wrote a porno, and he is reading it chapter by chapter to his 2 friends for the podcast. And it's terrible. It is some of the worst writing you can imagine, and it's porn. So it's also, you're having to deal with all the baggage that comes with reading about what your dad is imagining is sexy, which is totally not. But I mean, God, listening to one of the second season episodes, and like some receptionist at a pots and pan company was talking about how they do get the occasional terrorist threat. And they all start laughing at the idea of a pots and pans company being a target of terrorists. And Alice, one of the podcasters, said, how do we get at the heart of the country? Don't let them boil things.
It's really, really very funny. I mean, it's like unintentionally funny in a lot of places. Apparently, his dad is okay with him doing this podcast.
Oh, absolutely. Thrilled. It's all this attention.
Oh, I'm sure lots of people have bought the book. You got to figure that.
I'm sure way more people than would have otherwise. But his dad sounds like an odd duck, definitely. So, yeah, he's fine with it. But, I mean, yeah, My Dad Wrote a Porno. You should check it out.
Yeah.
But let's try and think of anything else that's going on. With lots of stuff going on over here that basically keeps us from having any time in the evening. So we've only gotten 3 episodes into The Defenders. How about you?
Oh, yeah, maybe 4 at this point, but really like it.
Yeah, we've already gotten to the point where there's a meetup of all 4 characters and they're having another hallway battle against the Hand in an office building, and just mega levels of cool right there. Well, I did, a friend of mine, Shane, was actually able to attend DragonCon, and he gave me permission to share a picture of him at DragonCon on the Pixelated Geek or the Binary System Podcast Facebook page with John Barrowman.
Really?
Really. John Barrowman wearing a Wonder Woman costume.
Yes!
It is just... Well, it's perfect. That's all I can say about it. It's just perfect.
Awesome. Oh, that's brilliant. I've been seeing a lot of fun pictures come out of DragonCon, and one, which I hadn't known was a thing until I saw this picture. It's Beauty and the Beast, and it's, the bell, except her costume has the Taco Bell logo on it with some, like, lettuce around the edge. Taco Bell. Ha, ha, ha. I love it. Oh, I did get to go to the Sandcastle competition this weekend, and that is really interesting to see. That's some neat stuff.
Some of those pictures that you posted, that was amazing. I mean, the detail, that kind of elaborate detail would be impressive at any time, but the fact that it's all in sand.
It's just crazy. I mean, apparently, like, it's a 3-day festival competition, and the first day is mostly like everybody gets this heap of sand. They all start out, ground zero. They cart in sand for this. It's done actually on the pier in downtown. They cart in a bunch of sand and everybody gets their sand dumped in a pile. And the first day is a lot of them shoveling sand into these giant wooden structures to pack it all down as tightly as possible. And then they take the structures away and then they start carving it. So that'll tell you like the sharp edges that go onto the sand. It's beautiful. They had it all indoors this year, I guess because maybe they knew it was going to rain at one point, which I'm glad it didn't get rained on, but it means I couldn't get many good pictures because you've got this great structure and it's standing in front of an open door, so everything is backlit. All my pictures were blown out. I was like, well, phooey. They should have thought about the restrictions of my camera before they set it up such a way.
Yes, priorities, damn it.
But it's a fun little fair, though, because they've got like a whole craft fair going on outside and food trucks, and it's on the pier. It's fun. If you get a chance to go to it, it's like $15, but I think it's probably worth it. Oh, and one last thing. Leland gave me a copy of the very first volume of Lady Killers, which was Joelle, what's-her-name, who we heard at the Artists Who Write or Writers Who Art panel at Comic-Con. It's her graphic novel, Lady Killers, and I read it. Very fun. Really, really fun.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. Good. Well, I'll have to send you a couple of graphic novels because I was finally able to locate my copy of the Motor Girl graphic novel by Terry Moore, and I have no idea what's going on with why the second one hasn't come out yet, but the first one is definitely fun. And also I managed to get finally read that copy of Rachel Rising, the first graphic novel.
Yes.
It's dark and it's good, but I will just have to hold off because right now I don't know where he's going with the storyline, and I was so disappointed by his Echo story that he did. So I think this is going to be a little bit more odd and in an interesting way, but again, have to wait and see how it turns out.
Well, we can only hope for the best on that one. Well, that's going to wrap us up for the week, so make sure to check out PixelatedGeek.com for Catherine's book reviews, and we've got comic book reviews, we've got podcasts, and Stephanie and Jordan have really been having a lot of fun going to a lot of these conventions that are kind of in the area. They went to Comic-Con Palm Springs, which who knew that was a thing? But they went out there, out in the desert, braved like 100+ degree temperatures and brought back a bunch of pictures of cosplay. So all that is already up in the site. And Leland has a new podcast coming out middle of this month. And I'm not going to tell you what it is yet because I don't know if he wants it to be a surprise or not. But he did get Catherine and I to record an episode with him. And that was very fun. We had a really good time.
So much fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one coming out because it's been a while since we've done a new kind of brand new podcast and everything. So fun. Very good. So make sure to check all of that. PixelatedGeek.com. Not sure what's going on next week. The week after that is when we start another round of trips down to Florida. Our mom is finally getting the surgery on her leg and foot that she has been putting off for over a year because of poor dad and all his health stuff that's going on. So we're going down there to kind of lend a hand. That may throw the recording schedule into a little bit of chaos, but we're talking about maybe recording another episode with our sister Hannah, and I'm still kind of thinking that maybe each of us pick a horror movie that we want to talk about would be a fun one.
Well, I'm thinking if we decide to talk about horror movies, this might be finally our chance to get Hannah to watch Cabin in the Woods.
Oh my God, that needs to happen. And we can't say on this podcast why it needs to happen, because Hannah does actually listen to these episodes, but, Hannah... But, now I'm worried that we've oversold it, which is the thing that we do.
I just think there's at least one section, one element of that movie that will just delight her. But we can't tell her what it is because we were surprised when we saw it. Yeah. So, yeah.
And it's Joss Whedon. Have you heard the kerfluffle going on about Joss Whedon at the moment?
And his divorce and his wife bad-mouthing him, and apparently he's an awful, awful person. So
I know.
I don't want to know.
I have two choices. I can either believe that she's crazy and lying, which is a terrible thing to think, or I can believe that she isn't lying and he's really just... he's an asshole. And I'm like, no.
I don't want to think that. Damn it.
I don't want to think that. I can still enjoy some of his writing, though. Fine.
This is why I avoid stories about the real lives of people I happen to admire. It's just you always run the risk of the fact that these are just human beings. And human beings are flawed. And that'll just happen.
Yeah, never meet your heroes, I guess. Oh, well. I thought it was interesting. Somebody made this comment. They're like, I'm never going to be able to watch Buffy again without wondering which one of them he was sleeping with. And I'm like, oh God.
No.
On that note, we're going to sign off. So one way or the other, we will talk to everybody in 1 week.
Talk to y'all later. Da 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 da